question comes up, what is a good retirement income? And this can be viewed in two ways. What is an appropriate amount of retirement income? How much do we need? And what are the sources that can generate this income? Here to shed light on both angles and answers to these questions is the founder and president of GulfCoast Financial Services, John Kuykendall. Of course, Gulf Coast has been named best of the best in financial services 10 straight years and running by readers of the Lake City Reporter for their financial services. And John Kuykendall, founder, CEO, always here helping us stay financially focused. And when it comes to retirement, John, there might not be two more important questions.
No, Peter, I don't think so. I mean, we really need to know how our income's going to come to us and that income's going to be able to last through retirement. I mean, realistically, there are a lot of people out there that are going to have 30, 35 years of retirement. And so that's a long time for their money to continue to support their lifestyle.
So looking at this question from the two different angles, let's start first, John, by how do we determine what is a good amount of retirement income or an appropriate amount for us to remain comfortable and confident that we can do so for the duration of retirement?
Well, when we deal with our clients and our prospects here, what we like to do is we like to find out what is their essential budget. How much are they going to need to meet all of their bills and pay everything that they have to pay each month? That gives us a good number to work with. And then what we want to do after that is talk about their discretionary spending. How much are we going to spend for travel? How much are we going to spend for a new car? Things like that are coming up in the future, but things that we're going to do. And then we use that current budget as a baseline and adjust for changes as we go on. One thing is that we're not going to have a lot of the related work expenses that we have. We're not going to need as many clothes. We're not going to need extra lunches, things like that. So we want to know really what the essentials and then what the discretionaries are.
John, certainly not me, but many people don't like keeping a budget. For those that might not keep as close a track of every dollar they spend and where it goes and how much is going out, haven't done that consistently. Is there any help or assistance that you can provide in coming up with these numbers for those essentials and those discretionary spending items?
Yeah, what we do is we ask them to look at their bank statements. If they're paying bills online, then that's going to come out and show in their bank statement. We also ask them if they're using a checkbook to look at their checkbook. That's going to tell us how much money they're spending each month for their bills, and then we'll look at how much they're spending for discretionary. I mean, Peter, there's a big difference between essentials and discretionaries.
Sure.
So we have to kind of come up with a number that works. Maybe you don't have as many pay-per-view channels as you have right now. Maybe there are some things that we have to adjust. You got to remember that in a 35-year retirement with inflation at 3%, money's going to, that requirement of how much I'm going to need each month is going to double every 9 or 10 years.
Yeah. John, if I'm using a credit card, that bill, that payment still comes out of that root banking account,
Sure.
right? That's still
Right.
going to be accounted for. What about if I've got a mortgage payment now, but maybe 5 to 10 years into retirement, that might go away?
Well, what we'll do is when we run the computer model, we will put that in there and show that payment going away, and that will be calculated in the plan. That financially focused income plan that we talk about, that will take care of that. Suppose you got a car payment now, but the car is going to be paid off in 2 years or 3 years. Suppose you want a boat and you're going to have a boat payment in 5 years, then we will be able to put that anchor in there for you.
A little play on words there. Absolutely. Maybe if those payments go away, especially a big one like a mortgage payment,
Yes.
though, that's a little bit of kind of built-in inflation protection. If we're looking at the other side of this equation, the income, if that does not reduce in a corresponding way, then now we're accounting for some of that inflation.
Yeah, but most people stay in their homes for 5 or 7 years now. Very few people stay in their homes, have been in their homes for 20 or 25 years. So the chances are that mortgage is going to be with us through retirement, and we need to take advantage of that and show it in the plan.
That's another important consideration, right? Are you in your forever home? Is it equipped to remain your forever home as health and mobility issues kind of evolve and progress over time? And
Yeah.
John, speaking of forever home, we also want forever income, right? So there's
Yes.
what we're spending on one side and then what comes in on the other side. I know that you encourage people to really assess their grip on retirement, the guaranteed retirement income plan.
Yes.
Guaranteed sources are few and far between these days, but most of us have Social Security, right?
Everybody has Social Security, just about everybody. And so we're going to use that as one of the guaranteed income plans. If you've got an annuity, we want to show that as part of your guaranteed income. So there aren't a lot of guaranteed incomes for us, the generation now. The defined benefit plan's gone. So we have to build our own retirement plan.
The government workers still have those pensions, though.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, a little side note, Peter. I was talking to a guy yesterday who is in a 5,500 square foot home, and he's decided that maybe they should downsize. He's in his late 50s, and so they're looking at a 2,500 square foot house, which happens to be across the street. The problem is that across the street's on the water. So the new home is 4 mil and the old home is 2 mil. So
Even though we're downsizing, we might not be down pricing.
that's right. We got to worry about that
Yeah,
too.
yeah. We like those newer features, right? The latest, the greatest technologies, and a lot of times those things cost a little bit more. If we are even reducing the square footage and the footprint of the home, it might be a little bit more expensive. Luckily, I hear a lot of people say, well, it's a very expensive housing market right now. I don't want to go shop for one, but you sell a house in the same market that you buy one. So wouldn't that generally mean you get more for the existing home too?
Well, yeah, but you're going to be paying more for the other home, so your mortgage payment's really not going to go down,
Doesn't go away.
and you're going to have less house, but you also have less to keep up, less to maintain. Maybe the new house is newer, so there's a lot of advantages for doing that, especially in retirement, especially if you've got a two-story house and you can downsize to a one-story.
Okay. So again, we're talking about maybe the most important question of retirement. What is a good retirement income? We're looking at this from two angles, John. Number one is how much do we need? What is good for us? What is an appropriate amount? And to do so, we need to look at our expenses and our spending, our essentials and our discretionary. We
Yes,
need to assess our sources of guaranteed income. And then
right.
we need to look at some potential expenses that may come up into the future that we're not experiencing now as well. The healthcare costs, we need to include those, right?
Healthcare costs are going to be one of your major, in addition to taxes, are going to be one of your major expenses during retirement. So we want to put in there the healthcare cost. Medicare is not free. The Part B cost us, the supplements cost us. So, when you get into retirement, you still have to pay for Medicare. So we want to include those payments. We want to make sure that we look at potential long-term care costs. How are we going to cover that? Because we don't want to spend all of our money on one spouse and have the remaining spouse be broke because of long-term care cost taking all the money for the first one. So, those are some of the things that we have to look at. We need to make sure that we've got that included and the inflation for healthcare cost in our plan.
And John, as we are looking at those potential healthcare costs down the road, again, maybe not something that we are having to deal with day one of retirement, but kind of have to keep a reserve, a security blanket, if you will, earmarked for those potential costs down the road, or have something in place, some mechanism of leverage, some kind of insurance that helps to cover those costs if we encounter them, unfortunately, later in life.
That's right, Peter. And as I said on the show before, we're encountering more and more Alzheimer's. And so, I had just had a client who's been retired for 5 years. He's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. They've taken his car away from him, taken his guns away. And so, eventually he's going to be needing care. And so, how is that going to affect his spouse, and how are we covering it? How are we handling that? We're working on that problem with them now.
And then, John, we take account of how much do we have, our
Yes.
savings, our investment amounts, where they're located, and create and craft that financially focused written retirement income plan that is the withdrawal strategies that we will utilize.
Right. We're going to take inventory of all the retirement accounts. We're going to look at the 401ks, the rollovers, everything we have, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to draw it out so that we can pay the least taxes. And also, it will last the longest. Estimate sustainable withdrawal rates. The common rule is 4%. 4% may be too high, 4% may not be enough in your case, and we've got to tweak it. On $1 million, 4% is only 40,000 a year. So that's not a lot of money if your lifestyle is a lot more than that. And so we've got to look at that and then also look at the efficiency, Peter, coordinate the distributions from taxable and tax deferred and tax free accounts.
John, it feels like 20, 25 years ago, $1 million retirement was almost that number that is almost out of reach for a normal person. But today, that seems very much within reach, and we're seeing all of the time a million, $2 million retirement nest eggs, or even more. For somebody who's been a higher income earner, maybe earning $100,000 or more household income, and has done the work of putting away 10 to 15% of their income over the course of their career, we're seeing lots of people with those kind of numbers. And still there's this question of how much can I live off of? How much income can I replace once I retire?
Well, that's it, Peter. I mean, $1 million today isn't a lot of money. I mean, it really isn't when you're looking at a 30, 35-year retirement and you're looking at all the things that we're faced with as seniors. And you're right, it's very obtainable. I mean, when you look at Edwin Musk getting 450 billion, a million doesn't seem that big. It's almost like watching the old Superman reruns where they ransom the damsel for $500. I mean, 1,000. I mean, $1 million just isn't that much anymore.
Yeah.
And so we have to take that money and do the best we can with it and make it last as long.
I,
And well,
I like Austin Powers when Dr. Evil flashes forward into the future and he's like ransoming and he's like, "We'll do this for $1 million," and he thinks it's so much, and then his team is like, "No, no, that's not actually that much, Dr. Evil." He's like, $10 billion. They're like, "Yes,
yeah.
that's more like it." Well, we probably don't have the $10 billion, but $1 million retirement, like today's retiring generation, might need that much to last 30 or more years because we're active and things are expensive.
Well, that's true, Peter. And we've got to worry about the sequence of return. Am I taking my money out in the down market? Am I taking my money out in the up market? When we run these plans, Peter, we're looking at contingency plans. We're looking what happens in a down market, what happens in an up market, what happens if my retirement, if I do live to 100. How am I going to be able to stay home, fund myself, and take care of my needs without having to go to my kids or my relatives to get them to help support me?
So you define how much you need, you formulate the plan to generate it, and then you stress test.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have to stress test because if we don't stress test, then we're really not putting it in different situations. And the market doesn't run up. I mean, over a long period of time, the market is up. But individually, if you look at individual periods of time, the market's like an EKG.
Mm.
And so we have to, as we're pulling money out, we want to make sure that we don't crash the plan because we're pulling it out in a bad market.
But the beauty of this process, John, that we've described in answering what is a good retirement income is it's not based on what we hope that the market does, whatever percent, 8 or 10 or 12, or it is more of a reverse engineered math based approach. You're looking from the bottom up, defining the expenses first, and then working backwards for how to fill that.
Yeah, Peter, I mean, this system is so much better than what we used to do as financial planners. I really like the fact that we're doing income and not asset planning. In the old days, we used to look at how much assets you got, and we're going to grow your money to this, and you're going to be able to live, and we're going to do this and that to it. Now we're looking at how much do you need? How are we going to take it out? Stress testing it, and then saying, okay, we're a little short. maybe we need to do a couple of different things to come up with getting the red out of your plan. Or, as I told a client yesterday, hey, you're great. We've got enough money to do what we need to do. And that's a great feeling when you
Yeah.
can tell them that.
Good conversation on both sides.
Yeah.
So, John, when you arrive at that conclusion, you still want to be efficient. You still want to leverage and do the things to make the most out of each and every dollar. So, we have figured out that there is a need for income. To generate that comfortable, good retirement income, we know we're going to need to draw. What now are the tools available to generate a good retirement income? That's the second part of this question, right?
That's right, Peter. I mean, once we've got the plan and we figured out what we're going to do with it, we have to look at how we're going to fund those assets. And, one of the things we look at is immediate annuities. Do I need to take part of the money and turn on an annuity now and have that income coming in to supplement Social Security so that I'm not relying strictly on my growth bucket or my assets? Dividend paying stocks, bonds, bond ladders. We look at those. Real estate investment trusts throw off a high dividend income. How much of those we want to invest in? And then, certificates of deposit, target date, retirement funds, and systematic withdrawals from a balanced portfolio, the 4% rule. How am I going to be able to take that money out systematically over the period of time? We're going to look at fixed and variable annuities, fixed indexed annuities. We're going to look at TIPS, Treasury inflation protected securities. And then a lot of people want to do rental, income,
Mhm.
real estate. And, I discourage that myself as much as I can because there are a lot of loopholes with that. We can build equity, but if that real estate isn't rented, then it's a debt to me that I have to pay. And so it could actually, put my plan in jeopardy. And if that's something a client wants to do, then we're going to build that into it with the fact that it might not be rented for a while.
Yeah, I think, and by the way, just before this note is that this is a list of
Hmm.
some of the tools available. It is not
So,
necessarily a recommendation of any of those tools specifically for someone's situation. And for example, your comment on rental real estate, John, to me, that's always seemed like a very dangerous thing just to jump into without any prior experience. Say, oh, well, I've worked my whole career. Now I'm going to go buy a whole portfolio of rental real estate or one rental property to generate income. Seems like that could be something, if we're not used to it, if we don't know what it takes, if we haven't dealt with tenants and taxes and termites before, right? That's something that we might want to consider carefully. Whereas if we've been doing that all along and we went from 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 rental properties and we know what that takes, it may be a great asset class to continue on and support us in retirement.
it may be, Peter, because at that size, I've got the ability to hire a property manager and let them take care of it for me. And so you need to look at that. I mean, there's nothing worse than having your tenant move out and realizing that you have to replace the carpet and paint the walls and get the furniture out.
Or in COVID, where a lot of
Oh, yeah.
people just stopped paying rent and there was a moratorium put on evictions and things like that. I know that I didn't deal with that personally. I wasn't in that situation, but I know that that was dealt with
Mhm.
during that time. And it's not something that's necessarily unprecedented just with COVID either. So, yeah, John, the question, what is a good retirement income? It's an important one to reflect on our specific answer because my answer might be different than my brother's or my neighbor's or my parents. My answer might be different than your answer. And
Sure.
so we really have to sit down and answer this question from two angles. What is a good income for me? What is an appropriate income? And then how am I going to generate it? What do I feel comfortable utilizing? And that's the process that you help people through with that financially focused written retirement income plan.
Well, that's right, Peter, and that's what that does. I had a client come in the other day and said, "Look, I've filled out this fact finder for you, and I've given you all my information, but I really don't think, I'm on Social Security, I'm on Medicare. I don't see how this relates to me because I've done all that. All I want you to do is take my accounts." And I said, "Well, we'll be glad to take your accounts, and we can move those, but." you're 62, 65, I think you were 66. How do we know that what you're doing is going to be able to give you income during your retirement life?
Mm.
How do we know that unless we do the plan? And that's where the plan comes in, is figuring out how much money I can spend, how I'm going to spend my money, and making wise decisions, both tax wise and investment wise, in doing that, Peter.
Well, I think that's common goals there, John, is creating as much income as we can while paying as little in tax as is legally required and morally and ethically possible. So I know, again, these are questions, these are different factors that are included into that written financially focused income plan. Ladies and gentlemen, you get that at Gulf Coast Financial Services. If you would like your own financially focused written retirement income plan, pick up the phone, give a call, 386-755-9018, 386-755-9018, 386-755-9018. You can also visit online, GulfCoastFinancial.net, GulfCoastFinancial.net. And John, one of the courtesy services that you offer there, you and your team will help craft an individual, personalized, financially focused written retirement income plan for those that come and visit you.
That's right, Peter, we will. Remember, no individual has the same retirement number as another person. All the retirement numbers are different. It just depends on how much money you need. No investment or we talk about these types of investments that we can invest in. Not everybody's going to use all of them. We're going to do the best job we can to find the ones that work for you, the ones you're comfortable with, and the ones that fit your risk profile.
Yeah. Well, again, it starts with the planning process. Financial confidence leads from that, ladies and gentlemen. So pick up the phone, give Gulf Coast Financial Services a call, 386-755-9018, 386-755-9018, or go online to GulfCoastFinancial.net, GulfCoastFinancial.net. John, always appreciate the time.
Thank you. See you next week.
Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and tune in for more financial focus by visiting GulfCoastFinancial.net. The information presented on this program is provided for informational purposes only, without warranty of accuracy, completeness, or suitability for a particular purpose. This program is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. This information is general in nature, not specific enough to be construed as advice. You should not make any decision based on the information presented on this program without independent consultation with an appropriately licensed professional or competent advisor. Investment in securities or the market involves a potential risk for loss of principal. Trading, therefore, may not be suitable for all listeners. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals of growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the product's features and costs. Early withdrawals may subject the owner to penalties, fees, or taxes. John Kuykendall is registered with and securities are offered through Kovac Securities, Inc., member FINRA SIPC, found online at www.kovacsecurities.com. Advisory services are offered through Gulf Coast Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor in Florida. Gulf Coast Financial Services, Inc. is not affiliated with Kovac Securities, Inc. or Kovac Advisors, Inc. Past performance is not indicative of future results. All investing involves risk. Investment decisions should be based on your own goals, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Due to various factors, including changing market conditions and/or applicable laws, the content may no longer be reflective of current opinions or positions. Gulf Coast Financial Services, Inc. has been named as Best of the Best since 2015 in the category of Best Financial Advisor in the Lake City, Florida area. The award was based on receiving the most votes in this category from a survey offered and tabulated by the Lake City Reporter. No direct or indirect compensation was provided to the Lake City Reporter and/or any raters, and the award is not contingent on future direct or indirect compensation offered to the newspaper and/or raters. Portfolio performance is not a criterion, and voting is open to any readers of the newspaper.